Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Module 3. So I'm finally dressed up professionally because school has started. I'm back in person. Today, I want to talk to you about the requirements for Module 3, and I want to give you a little bit of background about what you're going to be studying this week. So go to Module 3. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I'm going to start with the aim first. So what is the purpose? So this week, you're going to be looking at early literacy, or we call it emergent literacy. It denotes the period of development when a child is learning to read and write. Before the child attends school, they've already been engaged in some reading and writing. We want to analyze an article related to early literacy. We're going to apply knowledge of scientifically based literacy and apply literacy to a classroom instruction. Now, you can see that it talks about a summary. Good news, I'm not having you do that summary. I only have one assignment for you this week because it's kind of a bigger assignment and I want you to spend some time on that. So this week, what does research say about early or emergent literacy? That's our focus. What are those best practices? So this week you have 2 articles that you need to read. The first one is called Research Policy and Practice in Early Childhood. And then you have another one entitled Theories of Child Development and Their Impact on Early Childhood Education. So I want to talk to you about the first article entitled, I'm finding it here, Research Policy and Practice in Early Childhood. And I'm going to share that with you. Sorry, I have to go to a different screen. Here we go. So this article, and I'm going to enlarge it, it gives you all the different research and policy related to emergent literacy. And so I wanted to point out, and it kind of gives you that historical context, a couple of things that I want to point out to you. The first one is on page 313, so I'm going to skip over to that. Okay, on page 313, it talks about the National Reading Panel. Many of you maybe have heard about this, but this was in 1997, Congress asked the director of National Institute of Child Health and Development to discuss with the Secretary of Education to gather a panel to describe research-based knowledge representing the various practices for reading instruction with children. And that's called the National Reading Panel. The National Reading Panel, as you can see from the article, surveyed about 100,000 reading studies that were published after 1966 and another 15,000 that were published before 1966. And you notice here it says, although the panel was unable to conduct a critical analysis of these studies in 1980, 1999, 1998, not sure why they weren't able to do that. It acknowledged important areas that had been publicized and prepared. So what they did was they said, these are some things that we're seeing as that have been highly published. And things like the importance of the role of the parent, the importance of early identification. That's really important. For years, I worked for the Department of Defense school system, and when parents would go to the hospital, of course, they're usually at a hospital on base. They had an early identification that the doctors could work with the schools and the parents and say, we're seeing this already. And so I was the principal of a primary school, and we had 3 classrooms that were considered preschool special education. And I really felt like the Department of Defense did an excellent job of that early identification of students that had risk factors. So these were students that I had IEPs that were preschoolers. So I had 3 and 4-year-olds in my school. This panel said, okay, phonemic awareness and phonics is important. You have to have clear objectives. The importance of applying the highest standards related to research. although the entire panel didn't do that themselves. That's interesting. The importance of the role of teachers in professional development, and then the importance of widely disseminating the information that the panel discovered. So that was the National Reading Panel. Then years later, I'm going to go to 315 here, we had another panel, but this panel is the National Early Literacy Panel. So now this panel said, we're just going to focus on early childhood literacy. And that was in 2002. And they were charged, this panel, with a procedural review to synthesize pertinent studies related to early literacy. And so that's when they then did a meta-analysis, and you could actually download that. If you download this article, you can go there and they will, can't reach. Looks like I'm going to have to try to find that one. Sorry, let me go back. It did not link to that article. Okay, so I'm going to go back over here. But this National Early Literacy Panel, they came up with some best practices too. And so this article is a good article because it really explains what are some of those that those two major panels came up with related to early childhood. So you have that article, and then you have one on theories of child development and their impact. And it goes through systematically and looks at the literature. And then it talks about how that literature relates to literacy theories, which we looked at in Module 2. So it talks about theories like maturation theory. That's an interesting theory. Talks about constructivist theories, looking at the work of Piaget and Vygotsky. It talks, and Bruner, behaviorist theory. A lot of us use the behaviorist theory, especially as we're implementing the science of reading, and we're doing that in direct, explicit instruction. Sorry, I need to stop sharing that. So those two articles you're going to be reading, and that's going to give you a background about what does research say about early childhood literacy. So they're pretty dense. I had to print mine and highlight them to really read them and understand them well. That's your reading. You also have a couple of videos that you have to, there's some videos on there, but that's for a summary critique. You do not have to do the summary critique, so I'm not going to make you watch the videos. Just read those two articles. I think that'll be plenty. Okay, now what do you have to do? You only have one assignment. There's no discussion post this week, and there is no other assignment. This is it. So I want you to spend some time on this. So your assignment this week is a video assignment where you're going to apply a literacy theory. So let me go to the direction so you can see that. So here's your assignment. You're going to design a lesson that applies a theory of literacy. The theory should be the same one as you did your theoretical framework. So in Module 2, all of you wrote a 2-page paper on a theoretical framework. So if your theoretical framework was linguistics, then you need to design a lesson that aligns with that theory. If your theoretical framework in Module 2 was related to cognitivism, what is a lesson that you can do that aligns with that? So you need to record yourself conducting the lesson with someone. If you have a student, that's great. If you have a group of students, if you're not currently teaching and you have kids, that's good too. If you don't have any students and you just need to model the lesson without students, that's okay too. The important thing is we want to be able to see the lesson and how it aligns with the theory. So the video is going to be about 10 minutes long, no longer than 12. You're not going to do a whole lesson, but a segment of the lesson. At the beginning of the video, you're going to explain just, in 30 seconds or so what your lesson is and the theoretical underpinning that aligns with that lesson and why. Explain that, and then you'll record your lesson. There are examples in Module 2. In your grade, I'm going to go to the rubric so you can see your grade or the rubric for it. So what are we going to be looking for with this assignment? The first one is content. Did you summarize the literacy theory, the underpinning behind the strategy? Is the lesson focused on a component of literacy instruction, maybe fluency or comprehension or phonics? Is the theory appropriate for the topic of instruction? Does it align? Did the use of the literacy theory is apparent and appropriate? So it needs to be apparent. I shouldn't have to, okay, what theory are they doing and why? That'll be worth 50 points. 25 points, originality. It's highly original. It offers creative approaches. They're innovative. It's engaging. I want it to be engaging. It shouldn't be you just explain it. You need to show us. It should be engaging for kids. And we're going to be looking at the quality of the video. Did you use clear audios, clear visuals? And that'll be the other part of it. So that's what we are. That's your major assignment. Now, you might think, okay, I'm confused. Where do I start? So wanted to give you some examples, okay, of what you could do. If I was going to, let me see if I can find my example here. If I was going to teach about a lesson using semantic mapping and a concept map, and I thought I had it pulled up, but I guess I did not. But many of you may have done concept maps related to vocabulary. Let me just show you a quick example here. Sorry, thought I had it pulled up. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example of a concept map that we might use for teaching vocabulary. Here we go. Okay, so here I'm showing you an example of a concept map. In this term, I'm looking at the word polygon. And with the word polygon, I'm defining it. It's a mathematical shape. I'm explaining examples. It's a pentagon, a hexagon, a rhombus are all polygons. And then what is it like? It's made of line segments. It's a closed figure. It has a plane figure, straight lines, and it's two-dimensional. This is a concept map. A concept map is an example of the linguistic theory of learning. The reason it aligns with linguistic theory is because it focuses on word meaning. It focuses on relationships. We're using schema theory, so there's some background knowledge that the student has to know. We are also thinking about sociolinguistics, and as they're brainstorming and as they're giving language and meaning, are many times you're putting that together. And so a semantic map would be an excellent example of a linguistic theory if I was to teach a lesson doing that. Another example, if you, let's say behaviorism, that was your theory for Module 2. If I was going to teach a lesson on repeated readings, and many of you have done this, a repeated reading is where you model how to read a strategy aloud, modeling appropriate fluency, pacing, intonation, and then a student in turn would practice it multiple times with you giving specific feedback and correction. And those corrections are modeled with the student, and then you're going to do positive reinforcement through praise, specifics on how that student could improve. And you're going to progress monitor. That's behaviorism. That's going to align with the theory of behaviorism. One more example. The cognitive theory. And we talked about that in Module 2. A think aloud would model the cognitive theory of learning, because in a think aloud, the teacher reads a text, they're verbalizing their thought processes, right? Before they read or during reading. Then the student practices, you're promoting metacognition, and you're doing that gradual release. And so when you're doing a think aloud, you're doing metacognition, you're also doing schema, activating schema. The student has to have information processing. So those are some examples. And so the reason we're doing this is in Module 2, you looked at theory, all these theories, a theoretical framework. Now, what does that look like in real practice, right? Now, you may have a strategy that utilizes more than one theory, and that's okay. You need to explain that. Many theories aligned to the science of reading are aligned with the linguistic theory, but also behaviorism and cognitivism. So you could have more than one theory, but you need to, if you do, you need to explain that. So that's what you're going to do for Module 3. We're going to really put into practice what we learned in Module 2 and in our reading for 3 to understand what is the theory behind the instructional strategy that you're using. And again, this week our reading is really focused on early childhood literacy. So that's it for this week. Don't forget, in this class, we always have our weekly meetings. And our weekly meetings for office hours are Thursdays from 6 to 7. And you use the same week. You don't have to come. But if you have any questions, that's the time that you can come and ask those questions, and I can give you more clarification. Okay, that's it. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'm looking forward to watching these videos. Bye-bye.